Welcome back, everyone, to another thrilling episode of Thrive Your Program with Coach 2J. This is your host, Jeremy Jones, and today we're going to talk about great technique is still required when you're retired. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it rhymes, so it sounds even better. And again, this is a really good thing for a practice context day is to talk about, say, hey, look, when you do a workout, and this happens to be the second workout this week where we have a row buy-in. That's just kind of the way it worked out with the movements and everything I wanted to do. I really wanted to do a death by pull-up workout, but the problem with the death by pull-up workout where it's just 1 the first minute, 2 the second minute, all the way up, is that some people will be done at 6 or 10 minutes, and then some people might go 20 plus, and then if people are doing the 20 plus range, then they're trashing their hands and their shoulders, and they don't really get that good of a workout in. So it's not the same as. So what I did is I came up with this one. It's a row buy-in, and then we're going to do 2, 4, 6, so that'll end a lot sooner. But so I wanted to incorporate this new workout here, but it's important that people understand is that you'll get off that rower and they'll have less than a minute of rest. So if they finish at 2:01, they have to wait till 3 minutes to start the next round. If they finish it in 1:59, they'll basically have no time to rest, and so they'll have to go over and do their first set of pull-ups. Now, but that doesn't mean that they can do it sloppily. And it's that conversation to say, okay, when we're doing a practice contest, especially, but just in general, great technique is still required. When you're tired, when we talk about it in CrossFit, pushing intensities and letting people go so hard that their form starts to break down a little bit. It's not this 80% slop thing. I don't know if anybody uses those terms anymore, but it's like, yeah, 80% of your technique is perfect, and then 20% of it's slightly not perfect. It's still good. It's still great technique. It's not that you're going to go push so hard that 80% is good, 10%'s not so good, and then the last 10% is total shit, right? So that's not what we want people to do, really, ever. So even in competitions, but on a practice day, talk about that. So even when you get off that rower and you've crushed yourself, right? So I have this all levels record as benchmark, which is something that we did earlier this week as well. And again, it's for people who didn't get that one in. We're going to be doing some rowing stuff coming up in the programming. So we're just trying to give people this idea that they should know their 500-meter row time. And if they did it earlier this week, now they're going to be able to compare. Maybe they can try a slightly different strategy. Maybe they can work on their technique or whatever. So that's why we're doing it. We're doing it again. But today is not a competition day, so they may not PR. But it's important to point out to people you should be recording these things because we can use that information to get the most out of our training. All right, so when they get off that rower, we just want to make sure that people are using good, whether they're doing some sort of ring row or again a kipping pull up, that even though they're going to be really tired from coming off that rower, they still need to take stock and take a moment to make sure they can perform the movement correctly, not just get their chin over the bar, but actually use good technique, especially when we're doing a practice context. All right, so we've got our warm-up here, and then we're going to do some hip activation, and then we're going to spend some time on toes to bar and bar muscle-ups because coming up, I think tomorrow, we've got some, I'll just give you a sneak preview. Yeah, tomorrow we've got some toes to bar or bar muscle-up options. So we're going to spend some time today kind of practicing that stuff because this workout isn't terribly long. This tends to be a little bit slower of a day, so it's not you shouldn't have classes as full. So we should, and I made the dynamic warm up pretty short. So you spend some time on some hip mobility. Go ahead and work on toes bar muscle ups. That's also going to help kind of again warm people up before we get their cores fired up before we do these squats. We're doing 7 sets of 3, so this is a time when people should be making a load jump, right? So we did 6x4 earlier this week. Now we're doing 7x3, so we've increased the percentages. But again, as I mentioned in that video, this is still week 3 of the strength focus, so it should still be very doable, right? We want to make sure people are able to complete, to keep making jumps throughout the entire 6 weeks. If 3s are hard today, we're going to be doing 4s and 5s and 6s, and that's all going to get really hard, right? So we just want to make sure people aren't being too aggressive with their load jumps. It's also a good time to point out to people that these dumbbell rows and single arm ring rows should be they should make it more advanced now, right? So they should go with a heavier dumbbell or a more advanced or angle on the single arm ring row, or even a weighted single arm ring row. with a weight vest or a plate on their chest, they should be making it more advanced, right? So when the load goes up for the back squat, then the difficulty goes up for the superset. All right, hard tide. There actually is a workout I have called soft tide, which is kind of similar. So I went ahead and named hard tide, so they're going to be linked from this point forward. But we've got a 500-meter row. Record as a benchmark again, especially for people who didn't record it earlier this week, but also so people can maybe try something different to see if it changes their 500-meter row. And they're going to wait until the next minute starts. So like as I mentioned earlier, if they finish at 2:01, they're going to wait till 3 minutes. If they finish at 1:59, they're going to go right at 2. Obviously, that won't be too common. Most people will have a little bit more time before and after. And ultimately, from a programming standpoint, they're going to get up and within the next minute or whatever, they have to do 2 pull-ups. So they're going to rest after that. So even if, like I said, even if they have somebody who finished at 1:59, they can immediately go get their first 2 pull-ups in, and they wait until 3 minutes to do their next, to get 4, right? And then same thing goes. One person's gonna they just get the extra rest, and then they're gonna do 2 pull-ups, and then they get more rest. So they're really only 1 minute different. And then the people who are a little bit slower on the row will get a little bit more rest in general unless they're rowing like past 2.5 minutes. But again, those people are going to just go do ring rows anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But for the people who are a sub 2 minutes, this is going to be basically a way of scaling this workout up. Because if you're sub 2 minutes on your row, you're not going to get as much rest, and so you're probably going to get more reps on the pull-ups. I also like this workout because it does sort of it is a nice pairing, because the bigger people are going to do well on the row, but they're going to struggle more with the pull-ups, and vice versa. Now, people could try to strategize. Like I said, it really only makes a difference of 1 minute, and ultimately, really what we're looking for is we're going to record the row separately from the pull-ups. So again, we're looking for about 1:20 to 2.5 minutes for the row, and of course, you just stagger people who if you don't have enough rowers. This works really well, because if you have your faster people go first, they will probably get more rounds of pull-ups. So have your faster people go first. That'll free the rowers up sooner. And then, one thing I always talk about is having everyone start at the same time, which is great. But if you just have people kind of stand nearby, as soon as the person finishes the row, they get off and they go start doing their pull-ups or whatever, the second person can just jump on. They just need to know what time they started at, so they can do the math and subtract later. Usually it's easier if they wait for the whole minute. Like I said, if somebody finishes a row in 1:45, that's usually enough time for them to get off and get out of the way, and the next person can start right at 2. But even if somebody finished it in 2:10, they can get off and the person can start at 2.5. So you don't have to make it sort of this strict thing where everyone goes at the same time, but that's up to you guys. You can experiment with which one you like better. But go ahead and have your faster people go first, because they're probably going to do more pull-ups, and so they need more time anyway. And then that way everybody's still kind of doing pull-ups at the same time, versus the opposite, where you have the beginners go first. Then now they're finishing earlier, and the people who are doing, now you have a bigger gap, right? So we want to make sure, as much as possible, the efficient way to use our time is to have everyone finishing around the same time. So yeah, have the faster people go first. And I put the numbers in here for most people. I don't expect many people to get past 7 rounds, which would be 56 pull-ups, because this is a 2-4-6 instead of a 1-2-3 death by, so it should end a lot sooner. Got a cash out here, and in today's cash out, I have an Airdyne or a row. So hopefully, if you guys have assault bikes or Airdynes, go ahead and have them do that as opposed to rowers, because you might need rowers for the next class. Remember that I'm always trying to program the cash outs so that they're not using a ton of equipment. But in today's case, it happens to be they could do more rowing, or they could do Airdyne today. But in general, with the cash outs, I look at the programming we did yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and the next day. But I also look at the equipment demands and space demands. So I'm deliberately choosing things and selecting things that aren't going to cause logistical issues in the gym. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot, and thrive on.